Welcome, race fans, to a very, very wet Sonoma Raceway. In fact, the rain has just broken slightly. A massive downpour here on the front straight. We're in pit lane, and as you can see, Luke Kendall will take the race 3 from Sonoma from the pole, and Luke's shaking his head as he made his way up to the through the pit lane. But Luke Kendall, fastest in a number of the races so far this weekend, but it's been this man here, Jonas Axpo, who's taken 2 wins from 2 starts so far. He's looking for a clean sweep here at Sonoma. Jack Yang in the other Valor Racing car has been very impressive, and Jack Yang giving me a souvenir. Thank you very much, Jack. Jack's, of course, has got experience in a number of different Radical series, including the UK, so he should be used to a little bit of weather. Matt Roma has done a solid job for One Motorsports, and you can see here that Matt's got quite the device to keep the weather out of his helmet there in the cockpit. Valen Venkatesh, one of our Californian superstars, and Valen has done a stellar job this weekend, very, very quick, was on the podium in this morning's race. We'll see if he can return to the steps at Sonoma. Chris Hoon came through for a win in the race this morning. He's looking for another one in the gold class. It's going to be tight though, because another Californian who's rejoined the series for this weekend, Joe Nuxall, has been unlucky not to take a win this weekend. Extremely quick though, and Joe's trying to get the monkey off his back and make it to the top step of the podium. Wayne Williams, it's been a bit of a disaster so far for Wayne, but he's fastest crucially in this morning's race, which puts him on the pole for the Platinum class. Our reigning champion has some work to do to recover points here at Sonoma. Chip Romer, his teammate, has also been a little bit unlucky this weekend. He led this morning's race for some time. He'll be looking to take a win away from his teammate. Dennis Kelly, not too much of experience for Dennis. He's certainly soaking it all up this weekend, and it's been impressive for the Group A racing driver so far. A relatively rookie driver who's been on the podium in the gold class. We expect big things out of him. Josh Holtz, another newcomer to the Crown Concept stable and indeed Radical Cup. Josh Holtz doing a solid job in Pro 1500, is relatively high up the grid. We can see the steam bellowing out the front of Robert Rossi's SR10. The SR10 ready to go. Robert Rossi, of course, surviving a rear wing bent down in the last one to take the win. David Mason, fantastic job that David's done in the gold class this weekend. Our young gun from Canada is the next on the grid, and that is Declan Dionorine, trying to follow in the footsteps of his older brother, who is ultra successful in Radical Cup racing. And then we're back to a fellow Aussie, Richard McDougall, on the grid with the Southern Cross on the helmet. Great to see Radical Northwest with plenty of local competitors here. And look at this, Sam McDougall lining up behind Father Richard, and Sam with some work to do, but has been ultra impressive this weekend. And we wait and see what the number 8 can do from the back of the grid, as we'll see with the 68. So, as we can see, there is plenty of rain down here. It is full wet conditions, and Mike Anzaldi, I know you've done some weather reports in your lifetime. I might throw it back up to you for the latest.
Thank you, Tom, and I am in a fantastic position in a dry and climate-controlled commentary booth. So big thanks to Tom and his cameraman Matt for taking a very wet indeed grid walk here for the beginning of race 3 of the weekend. This is round 2 of the 2026 Radical Cup. We're at Sonoma, and there has not been a Radical Cup North America race weekend where every single session has been wet, at least not in the last 10 years or so. That is the case this time around as we're in Sonoma Raceway in Sonoma, California. Normally pretty dry out here, not this time around. Very wet indeed. And we're seeing a lot of those big puddles as the cars enter the turn 6 carousel. We're seeing heavy water, standing water over in turn 7. An audible laugh was taking place here from race control as one of the safety vehicles was heading through turn 10, and water was splashing so hard that race control was laughing at the amount of water sitting on the racetrack at that point. Turn 11 is going to be another spot where we normally look for overtake maneuvers, but it is very wet down in the hairpin down there. You could see the standing water on our racetrack, and this is how it is most of the way around. Just before Tom went on the air, it was coming down sideways. We were getting reports of a possible hail or even sleet because it is very chilly. It's unlikely that we were actually seeing hail, but it's just big, fat raindrops all around this racing surface and around this property, and it is a very, very wet affair. So, big news in Radical Cup. And we're going to just enjoy what the next 40 minutes or 45 minutes or so brings us here on your YouTube channel while you're watching Radical Motorsport on YouTube. So a fantastic weekend so far. We've had excellent battles up in the Pro 1500 class. That Pro 1500 class right now, those 7 cars, let's call it 7 cars, 5 in the Pro 1500 and 2 in the Gold class are ahead of the Platinum car classes. P8 is where we find the fastest generally in the dry Radical, and that is going to be the number 57 of Wayne Williams, who had the fastest lap in race 2 from this weekend. So it looks like we are going to be on a little bit of a slight hold. It doesn't look like we're going to take the green at the scheduled time, but we are still very much planning on racing here shortly. Everybody getting into their positions, watching the main flag station worker climb the ladder and get himself into position to throw a green flag here as soon as they let cars onto the racing surface. But it has been an interesting and dramatic weekend, but it has been an excellent weekend for a couple of drivers, and let's go through them. Luke Kendall, he's on the pole for this race. He's been fast in every single session. It has been a battle between he and Jonas Axbo all weekend. Now, Jonas Axbo has won a couple of these races while Kendall was leading both of the previous races. And so Axbo had the benefit of being behind and having Kendall a little bit more of a guinea pig as he heads through some of these wet conditions and some of these changing conditions. But nevertheless, Axbo has come out on top of that battle for the most part. And so we'll look for him to be making moves here in race number 3. Remember, we do have a pit stop in this race. So this is going to be interesting as well. It's going to be a 45-second pit stop. Typically that pit stop window opens 15 minutes into the race and will close 10 minutes after that. We'll see how that plays out. There are a couple of cars at the moment still stuck in pit lane while the rest of the field has entered the racing surface, and so we'll see exactly what's going on with Declan Dianery and Sam McDougall at the moment. Both of those cars stricken in pit lane. We're getting good drone shots here, and Mr. Wet is back into the commentary box. Tom?
Look, Mike, I can tell you there's at least 3 inches of water in pit lane. My feet are absolutely soaked. These drivers, the only good thing I would say is because the rain has finally let up, the drainage around here is just, it's like, whirligigs.
We're going to unmute Tom's microphone here. And Tom, like as you walk up here and you just had a beauty of a track walk there. I loved it. Everybody else loved it as well. Tell us about the water down on the pit lane.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. There's about 3 inches of standing water down on the pit lane. The good news for these drivers is it's draining. And that's the only reprieve I would say. Literally, as I mentioned, Luke Kendall, the pole sitter, shaking his head as he was rolling down pit lane behind the safety car to come to a stationary point so that we could do that track walk or grid walk. So, yeah, you can see the spray. Look, the one thing I would also say is these drivers have been spectacular at surviving within the conditions this weekend so far. Obviously, the first race was absolutely horrendous, and we came away relatively unscathed. I think that's given these guys a fair bit of confidence to understand where the water lies.
And look at the moment right now that you're seeing the field go through. That's turn 10. That is a problem spot. We saw Porsche's crash earlier, and we've had our own issues in the Radical Cup, but you see that is very deep water there.
It is, and I think that's the biggest fear for a racing driver in a high downforce prototype is when you've got enough water to fill up the gap between the surface of the ground and the floor of the car. So these cars run with a 40 millimeter ride height. Now that's only really about 1.5 inches. So, literally on pit lane then, my shoes were up to the ankles in water, and I suspect over near turn 10 it's very similar. So I think most places on the racetrack will start to dissipate the water. The trouble is it runs to the lowest area, and turn 10 is certainly one of those.
We've been stricken, a lot of the cars have been stricken this weekend with various water issues. So we've had a lot of throttle position sensor issues. We've had some temping in the low area where it's just not warm enough to get the heat into the cars, into the tires, and into the radiators. And so we've had some various technical issues, but hopefully we've got those all sorted out at this point, though Declan Dionnery has still not entered the racing surface.
Right, so we'll just take you through that lineup once again from the back of the grid this time. In row 9, it's Evan Wolf in the 68 that will start. Right at the rear, Sam McDougall lines up against Father Richard McDougall. So it's an all McDougall row 8 for this one. And then from 14th on the grid, Declan Dionnery should have been starting, but as you just mentioned, he's down in the pit lane. David Mason will start from 13th on the grid. On row 6, it's Robert Rossi, who will line up again alongside Josh Holtz. And so look out for Rossi to carve his way through up the field. Dennis Kelly was impressive in this morning's race. Chip Roma is another of our Platinum class cars, and I'd expect him to carve his way up through at least some of the Pro 1500s. Wayne Williams was the pole sitter in the Platinum class due to his fast lap time in this morning's race. He'll start from row 4 alongside Joe Nuxall, who starts from 7th on the grid, and Joe looking to take a win in the gold class. It was Chris Hoon, though, that was fastest in that class and took the win in this morning's race. He'll start from row 3 alongside Valen Venkatesh, who's been extremely rapid, the young Californian. From row 2, it's Matt Roma, another of the One Motorsports cars. He'll start from 4th on the grid. And Jack Yang, both of those guys have been impressive. Obviously good pace, Mike, in the wet. And we expect to see perhaps some fireworks from those guys as they try and take it to the class acts of the field. Jonas Axbow, who starts from 2nd, and Luke Kendall on the pole. Jonas, of course, with 2 race wins to his name this weekend. Luke Kendall, a bit unlucky not to have converted what has been supreme talent in the wet to a win, Mike.
Yeah, he really hasn't brought home the hardware for all of his hard work, so I think that he is due. I talked to him a little bit earlier about whether or not he preferred to be in the lead or if he preferred to be in second place. I was theorizing that it would be better to be P2 to let that P1 car be the guinea pig. When I was talking to Luke, he kind of prefers to be in front. He likes the good visibility.
Good visibility,
yeah. And he just feels like he can be faster up front.
I think Yeah, it's funny because sometimes it's nice to have the rabbit to hunt down, as you mentioned, someone to clear the water path. But as you say, the spray is intense. Luke Kendall feeling comfortable. I mean, he's shown the speed too. It was just a small mistake in this morning's race. He was pushing so hard in the last couple of laps of that race to try and catch Jonas. And I just wonder whether he can rein in that aggression just a little bit, be a little bit more composed, because really in the end it was the composure from Expo that got him the win.
Yeah, and as we had pointed out when we were having conversations at lunch about that race number 2, talking to Charlie Kimball, he was very impressed with over 28 minutes of green flag racing. Those two drivers in heavy rain were separated by 1 second at the end. And so that was really very impressive indeed, really fun to watch.
Yeah, not too much drama after that race. There were a couple of investigations. Nothing particularly came of it. One driver did get a post-race drive-through penalty for, I believe, a pass under yellow, but it didn't actually change the results. So nothing too much to report. Teams working on cards ferociously over the break while we enjoyed the hospitality in the Turn 11 Club, and Radical certainly taking full advantage of the stunning facilities here at Sonoma Raceway, and you can see this beautiful view. If you haven't been to this neck of the woods, California wine country is something to be absolutely soaked up. But right now, these drivers are soaking up a tremendous amount of water. You can see the spray as they just come down the back section of the racetrack. USAC electing to use the bus stop chicane. We have been here and raced at Sonoma many years ago using the high-speed section.
That was awesome, by the way. I was here for that one, and that was a super pleasure to head down the back side of the track.
Now, that with the river running across the Toyota signage in Turn 10 would be almost unbearable.
Good recipe for disaster, sure.
But really, the bus stop allows drivers to hopefully get a run down into this final corner. It allows you to hustle your competitor, perhaps let them make a mistake on the entry to the bus stop, and you can just clean them up as you make this run down. You can see them. So we are looking like a side-by-side start as well. And look at they're almost boats out there. So here we go, folks, the final race at Sonoma Raceway, and it's Luke Kendall who once again brings them to the green flag. Could this be his breakthrough win here at Sonoma? The green flag is flying, and they're away, and Wayne Williams off to a slow start. Meanwhile,
Rossi very quick.
Yeah, Rossi going up through, and so far so good. Everyone giving each other a reasonable amount of space. Jonas Axpo finding himself in second place again. Jack Yang just had the slightest of look as... who's that? That's
Nuxall.
Chris Hoon.
And Chris Hoon.
Having a wiggle and a waggle, and it looks like Nuxall's through.
Yeah, and also a big start, a shout-out to Richard McDougall, who made a couple of position changes there at Turn 1.
Right, so drivers now trying to work out how much grip they have underneath them, how much water the Hankook tyres are clearing for
Looks
them.
like somebody sideways.
And that is Chip Roma. Yeah, so Chip Roma around, and unfortunately Dennis Kelly's had to check up because of that incident.
Looks like that's going to be no harm, no foul at the moment. It looked like that was a super light tap, so we'll hope that those guys are...
And look at Axpo, already very aggressive, getting absolutely drenched by the spray coming off. And look at this, running wide. So Axpo now with an opportunity to take the lead from Luke Kendall. Luke Kendall's run wide, but he has managed to get back on track and still in front of the 32. You can see the lack of visibility there from the onboard shots. The GPX cameras providing a good driver's eye view of what these guys are dealing with.
And the front end of Kendall's car is loose. Everything's twitchy. My goodness.
So he is the guy that has to try and negotiate things for the first time without any reference points. It's a huge ask, and through the spray, and he didn't.
And here comes Axpo.
Yeah, there was a moment there at that
side-by-side
river.
Into the braking zone, yep. Axpo looks like he's through, at least...
Now, this is the danger zone because they're going to both get onto power, and they're drag racing down the front straightaway and through the kink. uncharted territory, and it's the Radical Northwest driver of Jonas Expo who crosses the line in first place. What fantastic racing here in the wet.
Romer on Yang right now. Romer goes to the outside of turn 2 and picks up a position on Yang. P4.
So just as it was in this morning's race, Expo found himself in the lead and almost comes off the racetrack. We could see him run wide, but he manages again to just stay on the tarmac. And Expo was so good at soaking up the pressure, as we see the 59, so that's Richard McDougall's had a moment.
That's Rossi and Romer as they come through in the Platinum class, Williams in P3 in that particular class, and those guys tiptoeing around 11, 12, and 13 overall.
Again, you can see the drivers using different lines around the carousel, just trying to work out where that grip is. To be honest, I think it's going to be very similar, and that is no grip. You could see, again, Expo with a moment. He is also
really
using
deep.
all the track, going deep, trying to keep the momentum. A bit of a rim shot there. The race control not doing anything about track limits out there. So that's A-OK. But what will he do down into the braking zone of the chicane? This is the first time he's seen it as the pioneer.
So
Kendall.
these two out in front, and we do have a decent battle with Venkatesh and Romer. Looks like we might have a replay of what was going on with Chip Romer in the carousel at turn 6. As all those cars kind of get negotiated and a little bit wide there at 4.
Very lucky, some of those drivers to get through, and Dennis Kelly doing a great job.
Yeah, so really no harm, no foul there, just kind of a bit of a moment.
So everyone is sliding through that chicane. Meanwhile, Jonas Expo is again soaking up the weather, soaking up the pressure as Luke Kendall tries to catch up to the 32 machine.
And just to clean up a little bit of business, Sam McDougall out. He is in pit lane still, and they have not had great success getting that car going, though he is rolling as I speak. Not the curse of the commentary, but hopefully we helped him out there. So he's going to re-enter the surface, but he's a couple of laps down.
Yeah.
And so this is really going to be more of a practice session for Sam.
But at the end of the day, knowing that there's 30 minutes of racing remaining, you may as well get back out there. Who knows what's going to happen to your fellow competitor. Another bit of housekeeping, Evan Wolf leading Pro 1340.
And the current leader of that gold class, still Chris Hoon on Joe Nuxel. He's got a 3-second lead, and Nuxel is got about a 14-second lead on P3 in that class. That's Dave Mason.
You could see another river that the drivers were just running over, and Expo, again, just the car twitching as it aquaplanes on the racetrack.
Just before this race started, we were watching the tractors remove some of the water, and right after the tractors exited the surface, the rain came down with purpose and nullified all of their work. Great race between these two, though, as they head in toward the bus stop.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get a little bit of a wider shot into the bus stop, because the menacing Luke Kendall car comes rocketing down into the braking zone with far more confidence. Of course, Jonas Expo's the explorer. He's going into uncharted territory every lap while he's in the lead.
Matt Romer slow.
Yeah, Matt Romer very, very slow on the exit of the bus stop chicane. So that has elevated Valen Venkatesh into third place.
What we've been seeing with some of the radicals is them going slow on track, not because they've had an incident, but because sometimes the electrical bits kind of, have an issue there. And so if you recycle the car...
This is not a good place to be,
not
though.
Not a great spot, right? Matt, well off to the right side.
Yeah, Matt doing a good job there to just to get out of the way.
But still that battle going on up front, and that's Kendall and Expo. Just a local yellow for the moment for Matt Romer. And it looks like there's been another pass under yellow that looks like Evan Wolf on Wayne Williams. That is a standing yellow at the entrance to the bus stop, and it looks like that pass was made in a zone where you are not allowed to pass. So we'll research that one.
So drivers will have to be careful with this. I think their attention is so focused on just staying on the tarmac, and we've got a full course caution.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So that was likely for Matt Romer. But that has allowed, that will reset everything for Jonas Axbo, Luke Kendall. We've got another car off. That's the Primal car, the 28 of Dave Mason, who's found himself in the grassy field here at Sonoma. When there's not cars, there's sheep that are keeping the grass cut down around this racetrack. I'm sure Radical Northwest Steve Cameron would be very at home amongst the sheep, being a New Zealander.
Safety vehicles on the track now, full course yellow. Pickup trucks going to tend to Matt Romer, who sits in turn 10. And the leaders coming by that spot at the moment. You're looking at Dave Mason still, and he looks like he's trying to do what he can to get back onto
that was intelligent piece of driving there for Dave Mason. He was going to get beached on the curb or on the side of the track, and is instead rolled backwards onto the racetrack.
Yeah, find the pavement and get it back going.
So, whilst this will be a momentary break in the competition, if you will, this gives Luke Kendall something to think about, I think. Jonas Axpo looked comfortable out in the lead, I think it should be said. And now Kendall will have a restart to try and make amends for, a couple of minor moments which allowed Axpo to get the run.
And this is kind of how it's been going for Kendall, isn't it? He seems like, at least he looks like he's the quickest one out there. On paper, he's been the quickest one out there with the fastest lap, though not at this moment in time. Right now, Axpo has the fastest lap in this race. But for most of the previous sessions, the fastest car out there has been Kendall, but Axpo's been in the right position, hasn't he?
Absolutely. The other one that continues to impress this weekend is Robert Rossi. Just always seems to be up the pointy end of that platinum class, manhandling those high horsepower SR10 machines around the racetrack.
Rossi was something to talk about in the last race, of course, because he had an incident where he tapped the wall and his wing was folded down. Well, that brought out some controversy about whether or not the wing was damaged enough to require a black flag and get him off of the racetrack, or if he could carry on. And so that debate went on behind the scenes there. But Rossi back out here and currently running P1 in the Platinum class. You're on board with Matt Romer, watching him get towed in toward pit lane.
Now, of course, I think we've mentioned it, but not too much. There's a round of pit stops that's going to happen in this race. So 15 minutes into the race,
which is basically where we're at.
I suspect what's happened is Charlie Kimball, our race director, has just delayed the start of this pit window. We're under full course caution, so what we would expect, now that the field has been captured behind the safety car, I suspect at some point they're going to open this pit window and everyone is going to make a mad dash into the pit lane. You'd be mad not to, because you can stop under a full course caution. And so we're going to get a race on pit lane. That could get pretty wild in these conditions. And then we'll get this race back underway. So who will fare well in this round of pit stops? That'll be the question.
I know on the chat, some of the teams were asking if the pit stop is still going to take place, and some were even wondering whether or not it was the safe thing to do. The race director has decided that it is. It's fine to go ahead and have a pit stop. There's nothing, in the way of that. I don't see how it's a safety issue necessarily. So, we are going to have a pit window.
Yeah, and the pit lane is much drier than it was when I was walking down it. So I think you can start to see teams getting prepared. So here we go. The safety car is still circulating. No one is coming in just yet. I don't believe that window has just opened as it stands. The car has been cleared. So I suspect the issue was there that they couldn't open the pit window because the car that was being cleared obviously would have been cleared down pit lane.
Sure.
So the pit's momentarily closed for folks.
We expect on this tour by that the safety car would exit, and we, like Tom just said, expect that the leaders, Axpo and Kendall, will follow the safety car into the pits. We'll see how that goes, although they won't see that the pit window is open, right, on this first tour by. That'll
be okay. I think as long as the teams are notified, they can pit. So they don't have to go past the board. That has been the case in previous regulations in previous seasons.
Okay.
But the other thing to think about is the teams can work on the cars. Now they're not obviously required to. You're not going to be changing onto slick tyres or anything like that. But the teams can reset the tyre pressures. They can have a think about what they're going to do. Maybe change a wing angle or something quick. They will have about 15 seconds to do that.
Fastest lap around here right now is owned by Expo at a 2-minute flat. And those of you who are familiar with Sonoma know that Radicals can probably do more like a 133, 134, 135, somewhere around that for this particular layout. So, yeah, we're well off the pace. Pit window is open, and that board is being shown by the start-finish flagger, and letting the teams know that, in fact, you may follow the safety car into the pit lane. We'll see if that's how that plays out.
I think you've got to. What choice do you have? This is going to be the shortest pit.
Well, Tom, how about this? What if
the safety car comes in, though, maybe you get
slow.
Clear track.
Exactly. You have some clear track, and you might be a little bit faster on your next entry into
the
pit lane.
Now you've got me excited, Mike Anzaldi.
What's the choice?
This could be more of a strategy than I thought. I'm assuming, of course, that we are staying under full course caution conditions, but maybe we're not.
I don't know. If I'm Expo, I might be wrong. If I'm Expo, I'm staying out.
Yeah, track position. Everyone's getting ready. Cameron Racing's certainly ready. So I think they're suspecting this time by.
Although safety car light's still on.
Safety car lights are on. Well, then you have to pit. If the safety car lights are still on, you have to
pit. It's over. Yeah, get into the pit.
So here we go. Yes. You can see Josh Holt raising his hand. He's going into the pit lane. The safety car is touring. Everyone else. No, someone has stayed out. Who's stayed out? So one car has at least stayed out. Everyone else trundling down pit lane. That was one of the front runners too.
Fantastic.
So the safety car stays out with Chris Hoon. Right.
Okay.
So Chris Hoon, I fear, is going to be thumping the steering wheel.
That's not going to work well for him.
It's not. So here we go. Jonas Axbo's in. So too with the 54 of Luke Kendall. Kendall and Axbo both aimed so that they can launch themselves out of the pit lane. And the 32 is away. Kendall is slow and has come... Well, Kendall's fast. Kendall's come out in front of Jonas Axbo, but has he been slow enough for the Delta? That is the question.
A little bit quick too. Like I don't know. We're just saying that, like looking out the window, but yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Not much time in the pit stall at all.
And Kendall's run wide. He's off the circuit. Now, this is interesting. So Kendall ran wide off the circuit, but
we're still full course.
But Axbo, elected to just remain behind. I think if he wanted to push the issue, he could have potentially made the pass. He wasn't really quite close enough to argue that, I think, in a post-race investigation. But Luke Kendall almost throws away the hard work done via the Valor Racing in the pit lane.
For sure, and I think that you need to kind of chill out here and keep things slow, because if you do go off here in the full course yellow, there's no... Yeah, so this is just a wild situation here that is really fun to watch play out.
So poor old Chris Hoon is going to start this race. He's in the lead, but of course he hasn't pitted. And I think this is going to hurt him terribly. Yeah, the lights are out on the safety car. We are going to go green this time by.
And Hoon right behind the safety car, the whole field has basically caught the safety car. So yeah, Hoon is kind of caught out there. That one didn't work out.
So Joe Nuxall, could this be his day? Could this be his moment in the limelight? Joe Nuxall, the 22, has been ultra quick in the gold class. Hasn't had lady luck on his side.
And Richard McDougall, who had an off and had to get things collected, he sits in P2 in that class. Well, kind of, on track anyways.
So, the USAC safety car is going to come in. Chris Hoon may actually peel off behind the safety car, although he might get caught up in the behind the safety car in pit lane. So this is disaster for him. Whammy. Meanwhile, we're going to go racing again. Regardless, it's going to be Luke Kendall who leads the pack, certainly to the line. Yes, so Chris Hoon does pull in, has no choice really. He's just trying to salvage what he can. And Luke Kendall's going to lead them back to the green now. We're waiting to see, I can't quite see pit stop times on our monitor here. But for the moment, we'll assume everyone was good with the pit stops. And it's Luke Kendall who resumes this race in the lead after a round of pit stops. As now the 53 of Chris Hoon comes in to make his stop.
All right, so this battle is, as it were, kind of a little bit of a change at the top between Kendall and Axel, but basically these two cars within. And now it looks like a change for position here as they head down toward turn 4.
So what's happened to Kendall? He looks like he's slow. It's not just it's not just a moment for him. And Kendall's got to be careful. He needs to get right out the way. And you can see Robert Rossi reacting to a slow car there. Very, very lucky that he didn't get collected. And Kendall, disaster for Valor Racing.
Oh, this is so gutting. It's so gutting to do everything right behind the wheel, and then, something kind of gave up. Something got wet. Something happened.
But it's not over yet. And there's 15 minutes remain. Now, we saw the Tiger Beetle we saw Jonas Axbo soak up the pressure earlier today. He did a really good job. He's got his teammate behind him, so it's a 1-2 for Radical Northwest Cameron Racing, and Joe Nuxel makes it a 1-2-3 in terms of on the racetrack.
California
Nuxel
dreaming.
leading the gold class.
Valen Venkatesh, P2 overall. How about that?
I'm not surprised. Young Valen has really come on with his driving. I think he's learnt a lot from older brother Arul, and Valen just looks on a strong trajectory at the moment.
He'd be the first to say that he hasn't had a lot of laps around Sonoma, even though this is his home area, but it doesn't look like it based on his performance at this moment.
So I'm eagerly awaiting timing and scoring to show us some pit stops, because it could be that someone has stopped short. Now, my money would be on
Luke.
On Luke, if that's the case, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll watch out for that one, because that is a pivotal bit of information that we need to make sure. Of course, you can't go any faster than 45 seconds. Your pit in to pit out at a bare minimum needs to be 45 seconds flat. The perfect pit stop would be 46.1, and Kendall slow again on the front straight.
And
the car
no
just
noise.
Turned off.
Yeah, no noise.
He just shut it down. He shut it down while he's rolling, and he's going to reset.
The trouble is he's rolling uphill now.
Yep.
So could we see another full course caution? The white flag is certainly out at the start-finish line. Jonas Axbo in command, beautifully in command too, pulling a gap on Valen Venkatesh. It's out to 4.8 seconds. Joe Nuxel sitting pretty in third place, first in the gold class. Then it's Jack Yang, who sits third in Pro 1500. Robert Rossi first in the platinum class. And
now Kendall's problems have been elevated in their level. So we'll see. It's a local yellow flag at the moment. Well, hopefully he can get that thing back fired up.
Full course caution. I can just hear it on the race control radio.
Wow. Full course. Okay. So another chance to reset a little bit. Looking at Robert Rossi, who is now sitting P5 overall.
Oh, and of course, the curse of race control, well, potentially, is that the 54 of Luke Kendall just got going, but I think he's trying to find that access road, to be honest.
And interestingly, because of the types of issues that we've seen with it, and let's be honest, it is tremendously wet. It's not that it's just raining. There's standing water that these cars are taking in through the radiator ducts, and so it is not surprising.
Yeah, Luke, you can see him gesturing in the cockpit. He's that frustrated.
Yeah.
The winds have evaded him so far this weekend, and again, he looked to be in the box seat after that round of pit stops. He's been fastest on track, as you mentioned, for most of the sessions here. He qualified on the pole for race 2 as well, and on the pole for this one.
And as you just saw the safety car pass by, I think any hope for Kendall to get it fired up is going to be doused by the fact that he is now one lap down.
Exactly.
So
tough one. 11 minutes remain. The trouble for everyone else is I think we're going to go back green. So what does this mean for Jonas Expo? Could this be a breakthrough win for Valen Venkatesh? Joe Nuxhall, can he retain the top step in the gold class, or will Richard McDougall pip him at the post?
Well, if Nuxhall's going to do this, McDougall's got to deal with Holtz, Rossi, Yang. That's going to be a trio of difficult cars to get by.
He was strong on the original start, though.
Yeah, he certainly was, making up some positions right after the green flag there in turn 1.
So it's been quite remarkable, ladies and gentlemen. We had a lovely lunch, and of course it was dry. In fact, the sunshine was out. Things were starting to dry off, and then right on cue, when it was time to go racing again, the heavens opened. And it's been the story of the weekend, one of survival, not just in terms of keeping your car, well, I was going to say on the island, but in this case, in the river.
On the hillside,
yeah. Certainly between the white lines, and one of just being a little bit lucky when it comes to a few of the mechanical gremlins that have cropped up. But as you mentioned, it's not just, this is extreme conditions, which it's very rare that you see radicals stationary on the side of the racetrack. And just the torrential downpour playing havoc. Teams have got various components taped up. They've got plastic bags over them. They're doing everything they can. The Radical factory technicians also modifying some of the parameters for the engines just to make sure that cars don't stop on circuit. But at the end of the day, water and electricity don't tend to go together.
Yeah, and I tried pointing it out yesterday that when you're in conditions like this, again, nobody's really going to, a track day Radical owners really not going to choose a day like this to run, and so it's mostly going to be in the cup, in the various cups around the world where you're going to see these racers come up with these problems. Now, remember, these are experimental cars at some level, right? So it is this type of weather that Radicals probably haven't seen too much of this really heavy standing water, and certainly we're seeing some weak points in some areas of electronics that are like, oh, okay, now we need to put a plastic bag around this particular sensor, or we need to go into the engineering room and sort of figure out what we should do with this particular component. But it is definitely going to be the Radical Cup where some of these things rear their ugly head, so to speak, Tom, because it's only in these conditions where everybody's basically forced to go out there in the session and really experience everything that the elements are bringing.
Now, the good news is that the skies are starting to brighten. Bad news for that poor young man there. Luke Kendall has just come on strong since Sebring. I was mentioning to Reese Terry, who runs Valor Racing, just how impressed everyone has been this weekend with Luke Kendall. Seems to be maturing rapidly behind the wheel, and a lovely young chap as well. He's got big aspirations, and in fact, Valor Racing tasked with preparing him for LMP3 next year in Europe. He's going to be running some races in England and in Europe with Radical in preparation for that.
A super nice young man to talk to. He's modest, he's polite, and he is darn quick from the driver's position in that Radical XXR.
So the drivers will have to reset again. They're going to go from touring speed to flat out. It is going to be a tough ask for the man who will bring them to the line. Jonas Expo has to get back into the mode of navigating this racetrack and the conditions at hand for the first time. Everyone will catch a glimmer, and only a glimmer because of the spray, of the pace that Expo's carrying into each corner.
I'll be watching Venkatesh as well, where he's got Nuxhall right behind him, and even more familiar, Yang.
Yeah, surely Venkatesh and Yang, this is a huge opportunity for them. They're already on the podium, but when you look ahead and you can only see a couple of cars between yourself and what would be a race win. I think discretion gets thrown out the window.
Just a little over 6 minutes to go, and we're going back green.
And the green has come out early, Jonas Expo, as Robert Rossi carves his way up through. So Rossi looking to make amends for the Platinum class drivers who haven't been at the pointy end of the field, and Rossi now carving his way up.
And to put some room in between he and Romer.
Yeah, and not only Romer, but Wayne Williams looked pretty racy on that restart as well. So those guys gaining some confidence in this final 6 minutes. Jack Yang, now the sole surviving Valor Racing car, looking to the inside of Robert Rossi, and this is the difference between the two class cars. So the SR10 having a big moment as the turbo spools up, and the SR10 a slightly heavier car, more horsepower. So Robert Rossi just having to contend with that around the corners versus that very lightweight, very well balanced SR3, and you can see how much Jack Yang closes in.
This is awful for Jack Yang. This is a terrible position for Yang to be in, because now he's going to have to deal with this. Unless Rossi goes
Yellow
wide,
flag.
goes off, something, it's going to be tough for Yang to get around Rossi. We do have a local yellow flag because of a stopped car. Well, what do we have?
Yeah,
we'll figure that one out in a moment.
Back sort of in the turn 4 area or 5 area, I think.
And here you can see Yang is having to negotiate the S's here behind that faster SR10, but not in the rain, is it?
Full course yellow again. So there's a car in the tyres, and there it's Declan Dionorine, a young Canadian who has also impressed this weekend.
So will that do it, Tom? 5 minutes to go. Is 5 minutes enough time to rescue Dionery and get back to green?
Well, if you're Jonas Expo, you'd be now praying not to go back green.
Well, and frankly, I think Valen doesn't necessarily. He's probably let's be honest. I don't think Valen's sitting behind the wheel thinking he's going to take it to Expo at this point, and with 5 minutes to go, maybe.
I mean, if you're Steve Cameron on the radio, you're probably hoping that it remains full course caution, because it's two drivers, two teammates that could take each other out, or you can get a 1-2. Joe Nuxel sits third. So Joe's also going to be praying. It's very rare that you get racing drivers who are praying that we don't go back green. They want to compete. They want to try their best. But you can see that Declan's just having a look around
and getting there's a white waving flag for safety vehicles at the moment at the start finish. So let's not be confused that this is the last lap of the race. But at the moment, a lot of activity on the track.
So Declan looks A-OK. I mean, he's just sort of consumed all of the runoff there. You can see how many cars have preceded him.
Yeah.
So this is...
Is that the carousel?
It is outside.
Yeah. Okay, so interesting stuff here. Also, let's talk about the gold class there, where Richard McDougall, like we just mentioned, sits in P2 behind Nuxall, but P3, that's David Mason. He's been on the podium. So Dennis Kelly and Hoon round out 4 and 5 positions in gold. The story there, Hoon, who's had a pretty decent weekend up until this point, but he now
it was a pit stop, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A bad call. Now, whether he just didn't hear the call, that's the other thing. I mean, you can't necessarily throw the team under the bus. They might have been screaming on the radio saying pit, pit, pit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Hoon hasn't got the message. You know, as you mentioned, he hadn't passed the board. So if the radio wasn't working, there's no way for him to know that the pit window's open, other than the cars around him coming in. And I must admit that, maybe he should have twigged and said, well, hang on, I've got to follow everyone else in. But that's easy to say from up here when you've got more information. When you're behind the wheel, they might have pre-planned that they were going to pit late in the sequence.
And let's be honest, sometimes it's fun to go with the other strategy to see if that works out, because if it does work out, well, I mean, you're brilliant, aren't you? You may want to race. People are like, great call, but...
Although, I got to say, my the grey hairs on my head, I've decided that in the end, you're better off going with everyone else, because the worst case, you're in the same position.
Right.
Yeah, how often is it? It's easy to get that alternative strategy wrong.
Yeah.
We see that in Formula One. We see it in other forms of motorsport where someone tries to throw the dice, but it's really difficult. Now, 1 minute and 50 seconds remain. The white flag is out. I don't want to jinx this, but I'm just thinking of all of the issues we've had behind the safety car.
For sure. These cars are going slow. They're not being. They're not getting any cooling air.
These drivers are going to have to be down in
first gear.
First gear. Yep.
10,000 RPM, basically.
Yep. Just
kind of
heat these cars up.
Mm-hmm.
And Declan's back going again. So, okay. So what does this mean? Oh, it is the last lap.
It's over. Yeah, we're gonna finish this one under safety car.
Dare I say that's a slight shame for everyone watching along, but probably a good thing given the conditions out here. We've had some strong racing from the Radical Cup, and certainly it is a strong result for a number of drivers who have survived these torrential conditions. And, of course...
P3 for Yang.
Yeah, provisional results, but Jonas Axpo taking his third win of the weekend. Valen Venkatesh on the podium again, a second for him. Jack Yang, as you mentioned, third in Pro 1500. Joe Nuxall with the provisional win in the gold class from Richard McDougall, so Radical Northwest with another 1-2 in two different classes. Dave Mason taking third in the gold class.
Attaboy, Mr. Mason.
And then in Pro 1340, it's Evan Wolf, who looks like he'll finally get the top step of the podium. He was up there on the first race, but it was eventually awarded to Declan Dionorine. And Robert Rossi doing the business yet again in the platinum class from Chip Romer and Wayne Williams. I'm going to run down and try and catch up with a couple of these drivers because I think there's going to be one happy Joe Nuxall.
As you should. Get on down there. It was a pleasure to stand with you, Tom, as we try to wrap things up for you here on the last lap of racing and, frankly, the last lap of Radical Cup racing here at Sonoma Raceway. This is race number 6. It's the second round of the 2026 Radical Cup. And as you can see, the field is making their way around turn number 11 at the famous Sonoma Raceway track. And your leader there, Jonas Axpo. The Pro 1500 winner and the overall winner, Axpo, P2, Valen Venkatesh. Joe Nuxall, big round of applause. That gold class driver picks up his first win of the season as he debuts in the Cup this weekend. Robert Rossi, another win for the 611 car in the Platinum class. Hats off to Rossi after a trying weekend that involved car malfunctions and an incident into the wall, but still a finished race there and just a whole lot of drama in the Rossi tent. Jack Yang, P3, he's going to be on the podium for the Pro 1500 class as he finishes P5 overall. Richard McDougall, he is P2 in the gold class. Chip Romer and Wayne Williams had a little bit of a battle back there in overall P7 and 8. They are 2 and 3, and they make up the podium for the Platinum class. Evan Wolf picks up a W here at Sonoma. All right, P9 overall, first in the Pro 1340 class. Right behind him, David Mason, Chris Hoon, and Dennis Kelly in the gold class. Then you have Josh Holtz just finishing, and cars that did not finish at this point, well, Holtz, Kendall, Dionery. Matt Romer had an issue late in the race, and Sam McDougall had an issue earlier in the race, much earlier. In fact, he didn't even really take the green flag, and so Sam had a trying afternoon here at Sonoma. Wow, excellent drama. And what a pleasure this weekend. What a pleasure this weekend. So We're going to take one quick break here, and hopefully Tom's on his way down the stairs to the grid to talk to some of these winners, but the field is still heading through the bus stop chicane. Again, Jonas Axbo wins again at Sonoma, and Drew is going to head down there and hopefully get a word from these guys, but in the meantime, we'll take a break.
Jonas Axbo, congratulations. Another win here at Sonoma, a clean sweep. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot sweeter than usual being in front of the team's home crowd, and to bring Balin home second as well is just amazing. So yeah, looking forward to the next one. Hopefully carry the momentum.
Well, speaking of Radical Northwest, I've got to jump back here because Joe Nuxall, congratulations, you've taken a win. We've just been speaking to a teammate, of course, that's also taken the win. This is a big day for Radical Northwest.
Absolutely. I was gone for a little while, and I'm back, and I'm so excited to be back on a day it's pouring down rain in honor of my native Seattle. So I grew up doing this, but not in a Radical. It's my first time driving a Radical in the rain, which was insane. So I want to thank Cameron Racing. I have to thank Radical Northwest because this is what I refer to as my crack dealer. Sorry. I bought quite a few of them now. And I'm really excited to get my first win. This is just awesome.
Well, congratulations. We'll just see if we can capture someone else very, very quickly. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to, but as you can see, all the drivers starting to debrief. And actually, we've got time, so let's just go over and see if we can grab a word with our reigning champion. So reigning champion Wayne Williams, tough weekend here at Sonoma, but very trying conditions.
Yeah, that was brutal. I don't know, I fought a lot of stuff. Things that I normally do in the rain, and I love the rain, just weren't working. Yeah, I got some more homework to do.
All right, well, I've just seen someone else we'll try and capture very, very quickly, and that is our 1340 drivers. Congratulations, Evan Wolf, taking a win.
Oh, hey, everybody. Yeah, Declan gave me that one the hard way, but I'll take it.
I think surviving in these conditions, any win should be well-deserved.
Yeah, it was hard to stay on track. Really, really difficult to see, hard to feel. Lots of fast people in the wet. It's impressive.
Well, impressive stuff for you and Crown Concepts. That wraps up a very wet weekend here at Sonoma Raceway. We're off to Road America with IndyCar next time. We'll see you then.